A super happy Thursday morning to you all. Welcome in, everybody, into the pre-show TDN Daily. Hope everyone's having a great start to their Thursday. Fun one here on the show today. We've got a lot of angles to this Dalvin Cook news. We've obviously got it from the Dalvin Cook perspective. We got it from the Vikings perspective. And potentially, most importantly, we have our first major update that we have to make to a positional list. And we'll do that at the end. But we have to completely replace where we have the Minnesota Vikings because they are no longer going to be number 2 after Dalvin Cook is leaving. So we're going to have to make a major change to that. We'll see where Dalvin Cook ends up. That's obviously going to impact this list as well, but we can at least make a preliminary change as to where we want to put the new backfield of Alexander Mattison and Ty Chandler a little bit later on here on the show. So we've got all of that to look forward to. We've got your thoughts on the move, your thoughts on what the Vikings are doing, because there's a lot to dive into here on the show today. So hope everyone is having a good start to their day. Hope everybody is excited for today's show. Should be a fun one. It's very, very excited. I see the chat is already fired up by making EA Sports jokes in the chat, which is interesting. An interesting way to start the day, but here we are. We are here and ready to go. So we can get this show on the road here. Lots to discuss, lots to get into. So we will waste little time. I'll transition over to the full screen with the webcam and everything, and I'll press record and we can get this show started. And welcome into the Thursday edition of the TDN Daily podcast. Chris Schubert back once again with you here on the show. Hope everybody is having a great start to their Thursday. We've got a fun one in store for you here today. We're going back to the tried and true. We've got a news-worthy-esque show here today. No lists. We're going back into the news-related side of the TDN Daily podcast because we've got a report officially that the Minnesota Vikings plan to move on from Dalvin Cook. So a lot of layers to that onion, a lot of layers to that news. We will look at this from the Dalvin Cook perspective. We will look at this from the Vikings perspective, and potentially, most importantly, and selfishly here for the TDN Daily podcast, we've got to go back and redo our running back ranking list. Not redo it entirely, but we have to move Minnesota because they were in the top 2 with Dalvin Cook on the team. Now that they plan to move on from him, we're going to need to make a change there officially and move them down the list. So those are the 3 layers to this onion that we are going to peel back over the course of today's show. We'll start with the Dalvin Cook side of things here, as we learned earlier today via Adam Schefter of ESPN that the Vikings plan to release Dalvin Cook and save themselves about $9 million against the cap by cutting him as a post-June 1 cut here. I'll get the official numbers here in just a second. They take on some dead money, but they save themselves $9 million worth of cap space for 2023, and so that's kind of one of the big pieces of the news there. They had him under contract for 2023, 2024, and 2025 left. So by cutting him, that dead cap I think is spread out over the next 2 seasons, and then they have a $9 million in cap savings for 2023. Now, what will they do with that cap savings? That's a conversation that we can have when we get to the Vikings side of this. But let's just look at this from Dalvin Cook's perspective. 28 years old, coming off of a season in which he had 1,000 yards, 1,173 yards, has had 1,100 yards each of the last 2 seasons, has gotten to the end zone 14 times over the last 2 years, played in 17 games in 2022, played in 13 games in 2021. So the first fully healthy season for Dalvin Cook in his career last year at the age of 28, and still was an extremely productive player. And so that guy is more than likely going to be heading into free agency. I mean, I guess because they said that they plan to release him, there is always that opportunity that they could trade him. They might try to do it one more time, but they do plan on releasing him if that ends up not being the case. It actually says here in the story from Adam Schefter that they expect to try to trade Cook one more time Thursday, and if they are unable to, they plan to process his release Friday. Now that the news is out that they plan on releasing him at some point, I don't know what there really wasn't a lot of trade value in the first place, because I feel like if there was some trade value, the deal would have already happened. I think at this point, the way that you look at this is they are now trying to say, we plan on releasing this guy. If you want to jump in front of everybody, if you want to make sure you are not competing on a financial level with other teams, if you want to try to put yourself in a position where you can just give up a draft pick to get this guy and not have to compete with other teams, you can do so for a pick swap on day 3, right? And I think that's what they're trying to do here, is they're trying to maybe force a team's hand, whether it's Miami, whether it's another team that could potentially be in the mix. And we'll discuss some teams here in just a second. But that might be what they're trying to do here, is kind of push a team that was kind of on the fence, that maybe was kind of sitting back and saying, we don't need to trade for him. We'll just wait for him to hit free agency. Well, now that the Vikings have basically made it public that they plan on releasing him, other teams might all of a sudden decide that they want to get involved and want to be interested in Dalvin Cook. And that might force a team to maybe pay the pick swap of a 5 and a 6 or a 4 and a 5, whatever it ends up being, to get a deal done and jump the line and make sure that nobody else is able to talk to him in free agency. That's probably what they are trying to do here by this news, but I feel like it's probably unlikely that a deal gets done here at some point. We've got some questions here in the chat. Bailey says, was a bit late. Have we talked about where this might drop the Vikings on your rankings, Chris? No, we will get to that. That is the third layer to this onion that we will get here in a second. Tuttle says it's like trying to leverage teams similar to going after a UDFA player trying to get any value at all. 100%. You see teams do this. You see teams do this all the time, where they try to get some just any kind of value that they can, and they try to leverage the idea of when this player hits free agency, you're competing against all 31 other teams, whereas if you just deal with us, you're competing against nobody. You're competing against yourself. And so that's maybe what they're trying to do here. But let's laser in here on the Dalvin Cook side of things. Again, $9 million in cap savings for the Vikings. We'll discuss what they are trying to do with that here in just a little bit and what their overall vision is in just a little bit. But for Dalvin Cook, we can obviously go back and discuss the teams that have always made a ton of sense, right? The Miami Dolphins have always been the team that have come up. And Adam Schefter reiterated that today. I'll read his tweet here, where he says, the Miami Dolphins and Denver Broncos are two of the teams that are expected to have interest in signing running back Dalvin Cook once he is officially released per sources. There will likely be others, but those two have been monitoring Cook for weeks. And so let's discuss this from those two teams, and let's throw in some other teams that could potentially make some sense, right? For Miami, they have always been a team that have felt like they need a running back. They did use one of their 4 draft selections in the 2023 NFL Draft on a running back in Devon Achane. They do have Jeff Wilson. They do have Raheem Mostert. Again, not the epitome of health there. And I think bringing in Dalvin Cook to that room as a depth option, as an extra piece, as some insurance against injuries, you can probably lighten the workload of Dalvin Cook a little bit. That's the other thing, too, is you worry that he's only played 17 games once. It was last year. You know he's going to miss some time. Putting him in the mix with some other players that you know are going to miss some time, you can maybe manage the workloads a little bit better. And I still think Dalvin Cook has got talent. He's coming off back-to-back 1,000-plus yard seasons. So it's not like he's fallen off that cliff a little bit. I still think there's some gas left in the tank for Dalvin Cook. He's still got some juice, I think, to be a productive player. And so it's not a surprise that the Miami Dolphins would still be interested, even after using one of their 4 draft picks on a running back. Just look at that room. They are a team that is trying to win right now. They've got a top wide receiver core. They've got a pretty decent structure around Tua. When Tua is healthy in that Mike McDaniel offense, that San Francisco style of offense that they've been running, they were extremely successful last year. They're in a tough division. They know they're going to need to compete, and it's not like it's going to cost them a lot, and it could be a move that helps them on the margins, and that might be all you need to be able to win this division here in 2023. It's just improve somewhere slightly and be better than you were a year ago, and keep pace with the Bills. Try to hold off the Jets, and you might put yourself in a position to win that division. And so I can understand it from Miami's perspective, and I can also understand it from Denver's perspective. Javonte Williams is obviously going to be the long-term answer there, but you are looking at a guy coming off a major knee injury, and you want him to be able to slowly come back. You don't want there to be a ton of pressure on that guy to come back. So Dalvin Cook at age 28, you bring him in, maybe a year or two. That allows you to slowly bring Javonte Williams back, and over time, Javonte Williams can take back over being the lead back and take back being the RB1 there in Denver, but it's a really nice insurance policy there in Denver to kind of help Javonte Williams work his way back into the fold. The chat is bringing up that Mike McDaniel was just asked about Dalvin Cook in his presser. Now, he's not going to say anything because he can't. I think that would be tampering if he mentions a player on another team, so he'll probably just dodge the question and move on. But yeah, I mean, they're obviously a team that makes some sense. Denver makes some sense, and we'll throw some other teams in. There was a report recently that the Jets have been keeping an eye on Dalvin Cook, and they might bring him in if the opportunity presents itself. That would surprise me. I would be very, very surprised if they added Dalvin Cook to that room. They've got Breece Hall, who they've been talking up a bunch lately as being able to be healthy for week 1. They've still got Michael Carter. They've still got Bam Knight. They drafted Izzy Abandakanda. So they've built a room there that's 4 deep currently. And so I don't know. I think they would be a surprise team, but they are a team that's been rumored to be interested, so we do have to mention them. I know Dallas was mentioned in the chat that they make some sense, that the depth behind Tony Pollard is not great, and we haven't seen Pollard as a lead back yet. That came from Bailey. Yes, it's one of the things that I've discussed a lot when discussing Tony Pollard, is you've got a player that has succeeded very, very well in the role that he is in. And his role is more than likely going to change. The workload is more than likely going to change. You don't know what that's going to do to the production. You don't know if that's going to all of a sudden make Tony Pollard, a top 5 back in the league, right? Just because, he was good in this role and now give him more carries, give him more opportunities, the growth curve is going to be exponential. No problem. Here we go. Doesn't work that way. Sometimes a player is really good in that role because he's different from what the rest of the team at that position is trying to do, and he's a change of pace. He's a difference. It's a different look for defenses. There's a lot of different things that factor into that. So I don't think it's an easy, one-to-one to say, Tony Pollard good in this small role, increased role, Tony Pollard's numbers get a ton better. So the idea of the Cowboys going for depth makes some sense. I saw somebody mention the Browns. Do they have any cap space? I mean, they're a team that I thought for sure. And I'm getting healthy their cap space numbers right now. If overthecap.com would load for me. The Browns currently sit with $15.8 million in cap space. So certainly enough cap space to be able to get this done. But I thought for sure, after moving on from Kareem Hunt, that the Browns would absolutely 100% be interested in adding a second back to that room. That's been their MO. They've got Nick Chubb. He's the workhorse. He's the bell cow. He's going to get a ton of the work, the majority of the work. He's the guy that they lean on. But one of the big things that made them so successful in that role, in that scheme, was they had 2 guys that did different things that could give Nick Chubb a break when Kareem Hunt came in, but you had 2 guys that had 2 different roles, and it allowed you to be so successful on the ground. Now, no shot at Jerome Ford or Demetric Felton Jr., but I don't know if those 2 guys can replace what Kareem Hunt brought to that running room, and it kind of makes them, just they've got one facet to their running game, and it's just Nick Chubb. And so I really, really think that I thought they would poke around and maybe draft a running back with one of their picks. I thought for sure they'd be interested in the free agency market. And so this might be the opportunity where they dive back in and they go out and make a splash. I've seen the Bills be mentioned. One of our resident Bills fans in the chat, Sean Black, completely not on board with this. Do not want him on the Bills. His rush yards over expectation per next gen, he was in negative 41 last year. I mean, certainly the Bills have gone with a running back by committee approach, and they've got 4 guys in that room that they think can in the aggregate be what they need to be. They've got James Cook, they've got Nyheim Hines, they've got Latavius Murray, they've got Damian Harris in that room as well. It's a lot of people. It's just not a lot of high upside. And so maybe they add Dalvin Cook there as well. But they're a team to monitor. Somebody mentioned the Bengals. If Mixon were to get cut, we need to keep an eye on that, because right now Joe Mixon is still there, and so I don't think they would be interested if Mixon's still on the roster. They've got Chase Brown, who I think is going to be a very good backup. I think he's going to be a great complementary piece. And if you move on from Mixon, I think Chase Brown can be the starter. I think Chase Brown is good enough to be the starter there in Cincinnati. I mean, I mentioned him as one of my potential, one of my favorite picks for the Bengals. One of the players that I thought could be a breakout candidate for their team, for the Bengals in 2023, if the situation developed in a way where Joe Mixon was no longer there and Chase Brown could step into that role. But you may want a veteran presence. You may want somebody that can complement Chase Brown, and not while you are the Cincinnati Bengals and you are competing with the Bills, with the Chiefs in your own division. You're trying to hold off the Ravens. You are trying to be in the upper echelon of teams in the AFC. You're trying to get back to the Super Bowl. Do you want your running game to be predicated on a rookie? You may want to bring in a veteran presence. And so if they move on from Mixon, I think all the options are on the table. I think, Dalvin Cook could be on the table if the timelines match up with when they make those moves. I think Ezekiel Elliott could make some sense for them as a veteran presence. So there are a lot of options that could make some sense for the Bengals. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of teams here that could make some sense. I see people asking about some other teams that have some cap space. I will share with you, the Rams have $1.4 million in cap space, so they don't feel like a team that would be extremely likely. And again, we don't know what Dalvin Cook's going to be looking for if he gets released and then in his new deal, but I would assume he would want to play for a contender. I would assume he would want to play for a team that's in the mix, and so that's gonna limit the pool of potential teams that could be interested. But I think Miami, Denver, I think some of the teams that we've mentioned, the Jets, the Cowboys, the Bengals, the Browns, I think all of those teams make a whole world of sense for Dalvin Cook, and it makes sense for the teams themselves for what Dalvin Cook would be able to bring them. So, all right, we'll put a pin in that. We'll put a pin in the Dalvin Cook side of things. Again, we'll see what teams ultimately become interested. We've got the Dolphins and the Broncos, at least from Adam Schefter, as two teams to kind of keep an eye on in this process. But that is the Dalvin Cook side of things. Let's look at this from the Minnesota side of things. And I want to give credit to where credit is due from the person who mentioned this in the chat, because I'll let them kind of kick things off here. But Sean Black in the chat said, props to the Vikings for continuing to stay the course with their vision and not overreacting after a 13-4 season in year one of Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. Yeah, I think you clearly see here, and it's not just with Dalvin Cook, right? Adam Thielen is no longer there. Eric Kendricks, they moved on from. They moved on from three players that when you asked a Vikings fan about the players that meant the most to them, that they could easily identify, that were tried and true Minnesota Vikings, that were just embedded into the franchise. Adam Thielen, Eric Kendricks, and Dalvin Cook are three players that would come up in the course of that conversation, and they moved on from all three of them this offseason and really haven't batted an eye about it. They've been very okay with doing so. Now, I will tell you, it makes it easy to move on from Adam Thielen. He's an older player. It's easy to move on to Adam Thielen when you've got Justin Jefferson. And they basically, I think, got their Adam Thielen replacement by drafting Jordan Addison. They've got a great wide receiver room with Jefferson, with Jordan Addison, with KJ Osborne. What a great group. They were a top 10 group for us when we did that list. They were top 5. They were 5th. And that's without Adam Thielen. So they've done very well here to replace Adam Thielen. But I think, to the point that Sean made, they clearly, when Kwesi took over this team, they clearly came up with a vision of what they wanted to do. And they are clearly following through with that vision, even with 13-4. And what I think this goes to show is, and we made this joke back on Draft Dudes, right? And I think I've made the joke here a couple of times, is that we referred to the Minnesota Vikings in 2022 as purple cockroaches, that they just wouldn't go away. That in every game you thought they should lose, they would find a way to come back or pull it out in the end, or the miracle game against the Bills in the fourth quarter in the end of that game. The way that they came back against the Colts, like things that on a regular basis teams don't do. Teams don't every year have those games against the Bills and Colts both go their way. They don't luck. The bounce of the ball doesn't work that way in football. Sometimes you win those games, but most of the time you lose those games. And so for the Vikings at 13-4, I feel like using the term overperforming is unfair to the players, because I thought Kirk Cousins played well. They were coached really well. Kevin O'Connell had a great first season as coach. I thought they played well on both sides of the ball, but they did get lucky. Like they got to 13-4 with some luck. I think truly when you look at this, I think the ceiling for this team is probably 10 or 11 wins. And they overperformed that last year. And I don't know if they'll overperform that this year. The Lions are going to be better. I know the Packers probably took a step back. That's probably nice. But this team's going to be different. And this team might only win 9 or 10 games this year. And people might look at that as, oh, the Vikings took a step back. And I think that would be lacking the proper context. I don't think that would be putting 13-4 and what they did last year in the proper context. They got away with a lot. They were the purple cockroaches for a reason. Bailey says the underlying number said they were like an 8-win team last year that just overperformed. Is there a chance the Vikings want to be bad this year? If they trade Hunter, might be looking at a reset year. And that's the other layer to this onion. Dalvin Cook's not the only player in Minnesota that's generating buzz lately. There was just a report yesterday that there's been a lot of buzz and a lot of activity for Danielle Hunter, and that the asking price is a first and more as of this point in time, and that the interest is real, and that there are teams that are calling. Now, we'll see if they do that. Looking at the depth behind Danielle Hunter real quick, it's not a great group. In the offseason, they just added Marcus Davenport. I think they added Jordan Hicks recently in free agency. They just added Byron Murphy to that secondary. I'm just looking at moves that they made here in free agency of players that they've added. But they've got, they still got Harrison Smith. I think Byron Murphy was a great addition. I think breakout player. He was my breakout player for the Vikings. I mentioned him when we did that series. I'll actually pull out the book here and just make sure, but I'm almost positive that was the player that we selected for them when doing this list. But there was a lot. There was a lot of movement here for this team, but there's still a lot of good talent on this team. I still can't find it in the book, so we'll save that for another time. But Harrison Smith's still here. They've got Andrew Booth Jr. They added Marcus Davenport, Byron Murphy. I mean, they've got a decent enough talent on defense. The defense is the sore spot. The defense is the place that needs to turn a corner. But on offense, Justin Jefferson's still there. They still got Jordan Addison. They've got a decent offensive line. TJ Hawkinson was one of the best tight ends in football, true tight end one. Kirk Cousins is, you can say what you want about Kirk Cousins, but he's a top half of the league quarterback. And that's going to be good enough to have you in most games and compete. And so, there are people asking, do they trade Hunter now as well? I don't know if cutting Dalvin Cook changes the way the Vikings feel about Danielle Hunter, right? I think the entire time they were planning on moving on from Dalvin Cook. And so to me, I don't think there's a correlation between the two moves that, now that they've made it official that they plan on releasing Dalvin Cook and they plan on moving on, that all of a sudden means that they're going to move Danielle Hunter. I think those two moves are going to be decided separately, and they've probably already decided about both of those things. And so we'll see. If the price is right, they might be interested in moving Danielle Hunter. But just because the report comes out and says that the interest is real on the other side and that there's a leaked kind of asking price or a framework of an asking price, does not mean a deal is going to get done. Could it? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think teams are always looking for pass rush help. And so Danielle Hunter is a player that they'll certainly call on. But I don't think one has to do with the other, and we'll just keep an eye on it and see what the Vikings ultimately do here with this team. But I think they have a vision that they feel that they kind of have to soft rebuild this thing and kind of do it over time, and they're staying competitive enough. I still think they're good enough on offense to be able to score enough points to be able to be in some of these games. And I think their defense could be improved this upcoming season. They got Mekhi Blackman, who's going to be able to draw into that corner room as well. They've got some options on defense to get better than they were a year ago. And if they do that, then they might be able to stay competitive and stay relevant enough to be in the mix there in the NFC North, because it's kind of wide open. Everyone's kind of saying that it's the Lions division, but the Vikings are the team that won it last year. I don't think they win 13 games like they did a year ago, but they're still the team you got to dethrone. And it's kind of wide open. And so I think it is gettable for the Vikings, and I think it is gettable for the Lions to win this division. And we'll see. The games where they play each other are going to be very, very, very important in the balance of power in the NFC North. Okay, we will close with this. We discussed this from the Dalvin Cook perspective. We discussed this from the Vikings perspective. We got to now discuss this from the Chris Schubert perspective, the TDN Daily perspective, because we need to make a move here. Because now we have Alexander Mattison and Ty Chandler as the running back room in Minnesota. We now need to move that because it was second overall with Dalvin Cook. And for those of you who in real time when we did that show hate where I had the Minnesota Vikings because you were down on Dalvin Cook and did not expect him to be as good as I thought he would be in 2023, the Minnesota Vikings are now going to be more in line with where you thought they should be. And I think immediately we have to get them out of they've got to be out of the top. They got to be out of the top 10. So we're going to do this. We're going to move everybody up. And I will, and just for, we'll see here. Can I do this? Is this going to work? Oh my goodness, it is going to work. All right. 2 seconds, folks. 2 seconds, chat. Podcast audience, we are getting the video version of the show in a place where the list is viewable for everybody. Okay. So we'll go to this screen here. Our fancy Jumbotron 3000 that we've got over here. So here's our running back room. As you can see, we've only got 31 teams here because we need to find a place to put Minnesota. They were 2. We moved Indy up. The Saints have moved up. Everybody's moved up. And so now we need to find a spot where we want to slide in Alexander Mattison. And I think easily where I think we can start to slide in Alexander Mattison is kind of in this range. Kind of in this 13 to 16 range, which right now we have Kansas City, we have Vegas, we have the Commanders, we have the Jags. I think that is what I would define as the ceiling for this group. I think that's where I would define the ceiling for this group. I think the floor is kind of around this range. The Cowboys, Patriots, Steelers. I think that's kind of where I would put them. But Alexander Mattison is a true RB1. We don't know a lot. They might go really far down, to be honest with you. Because I think I would rather have Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren than I would Alexander Mattison and Ty Chandler. They might go below Miami. They might go below They might go Baltimore. Folks, are the Minnesota Vikings without Dalvin Cook and just with Alexander Mattison and Ty Chandler a bottom 4 running back room in the National Football League? Because that feels like it's way too much weight on Dalvin Cook that I'm not comfortable with having. I think Madison's a decent player. It's tough because the group right now is Alexander Mattison, Ty Chandler. They have Dwayne McBride as a rookie. Again, we're projecting of how we feel about this room going into 2023. I don't know a lot about Dwayne McBride at the NFL level, right? And that's the question mark that I have. Okay? So hold on. Let me ask the chat the question this way, because I think this is a very fair conversation. What is the difference between the Dallas Cowboys and the Minnesota Vikings? Tony Pollard moving into the starting role with Ezekiel Elliott gone, Malik Davis kind of an okay backup. Alexander Mattison, the backup, sliding into the number one role with Dalvin Cook on, Ty Chandler, the backup. I think the Dallas Cowboys and the Minnesota Vikings are pretty similar. So what if we did this? What if we put, I like Pollard more than I like Madison, so what if we just put Minnesota 23? Tony Pollard is really good and Madison is just pretty good. I have the Cowboys in front of the Vikings. But I think the overall idea of those running back rooms is Pollard is proven more. I agree, and that's why I have the Cowboys in front. No, I'm not going to put Madison and Chandler in front of Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard. I think Chuba Hubbard is a better backup than Ty Chandler, and I think Miles Sanders and Alexander Mattison are pretty comparable at worst. So I think Carolina's got to be in front. I think you can say the same with Chicago and Deonta Foreman and Khalil Herbert. So I think now we have them. We're going to slot them in behind Dallas, and now the conversation that we have to have here is: do we want to move them any lower? Do we want to take Ramondre Stevenson and James Robinson over Madison and Chandler? We might want to do that. We might want to move them down a little bit. All right, I think I have a new spot for them. I'm going to put them in this range. I'm going to put them 26. No, they got to be behind Miami because Miami has decent depth. They're going to go here. They're going to go in front of Baltimore. They're going to go 20. They're going to be 27, chat. That's what they're going to be. They're going to be 27. We're going to put them in between Miami and Baltimore, and that's where they're going to sit right now. I think that's more reasonable. I think that's more in line with what we're trying to do. Do I love that they're in front of the Ravens? Not particularly, but I think they're better than Buffalo because I think Madison's better than any of the pieces here in Buffalo. I think he's better than Cam Akers, Kyron Williams, and Zach Evans, and I think he's better than Tampa and Arizona. So I think the only argument we could have here is, do we want to flip Minnesota and Baltimore and move them 28? But I mean, Dobbins is just such an unknown at this point going into the 2023 season that I feel like just on that alone, I have to put Madison a little bit in front of Dobbins. So that's what we're going to do. That's the way the list is going to shake out. I don't know why this is like this. We need to make sure we spell Nyheim Hines' name correctly. But yeah, okay, that's where we're gonna move Minnesota. Minnesota's gonna go down to 27 on this list here for the running back rankings for 2023, the positional rankings. I think that is going to do it for us here on this edition of the TDN Daily Podcast, a newsworthy edition of the show discussing the Dalvin Cook release from three different angles. The Dalvin Cook angle, the Minnesota Vikings angle, and then the TDN Daily angle, which is our positional rankings for 2023. We've got one more show this week in store for you all, and boy, is it going to be a fun one, because I am moving over to the defensive side of the ball. We are looking at the defensive linemen. And when I tell you that this has been a very challenging process for me to be able to put these lists together, because you got teams that play different defenses, and I'm excluding edge rushers, I'm excluding DNs and rush linebackers from this equation. We're just going to look at those players in a separate category. So just looking at interior defensive line and D-tackle players is a challenge, because some places, qualify players differently and put them in different buckets. So the research on this show is very, very deep. We've been in the weeds on this. So that is the show that you can look forward to for tomorrow. Please rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. We greatly appreciate you doing all those things. It helps us grow. It helps us, continue to be in the algorithm. That is the secret sauce, and it's not so secret anymore. You rate, review, subscribe to this podcast. It helps us grow, and it helps us have this amazing football talking community that we have each and every day here on the show. So if you can do that, that'd be lovely. Share the show, please. Tell everybody where you're listening to the show, whether it's on YouTube, whether it is on a podcast platform. Please share the show with somebody, friend, family member, coworker, somebody that you think would enjoy being a part of the conversation and being a part of this show each and every day. Join us on the YouTube side of things Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are live on the Draft Network YouTube channel, hanging out over there. You can be a part of the live show and the pre and the post show. If you want to catch us on demand, you can do so as well. All of the live streamed videos are saved, and you can catch them on demand at a later date. Appreciate everybody making this show a part of their day. Hope everybody has a great rest of their Thursday. We'll talk to y'all tomorrow. I do not think the D-line episode will be fun for me. I got to tell you, Bailey, it's not fun for me. I'm not enjoying it. I'm not enjoying putting the list together. I don't even have teams on the list yet because I'm trying to find the correct places to look at, like, excluding edge players. And then if I go to a source that kind of excludes players, I want to make sure that they're not excluding a player that I want to be in this mix and isn't, right? Like, it just happened with the Giants. The places that I looked didn't have who was it? I'll look at the depth chart and I'll tell you who it was immediately because I was looking at a bunch of different lists. Leonard Williams. Like, Leonard Williams is classified as a defensive end on a depth chart. And, like, I don't think that's, like, that's not how they he's a defensive lineman. So, like, you have to, like, double and triple check everything that we do here. And so that's kind of been the process that has been pretty difficult. Over under 31.5 for the Bears. I think they'll be top 30. I think they'll be top 30. But we'll see. We'll let the process play out. We'll let the research speak for itself. The Eagles are going to be pretty high. The Eagles will probably be top 6. The Giants will be in there. The 49ers will be in there. I think of other teams that will be in there. The Colts will probably be in there. I'm going to see Transformers today. I've been waiting for years to see another mediocre roller coaster movie about robots. I enjoy going to the movies. It's one of my favorite things. I'll do it by myself. I'll go to the movies by myself. I'll go to the movies with friends. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I love a good movie. The movie that I am eagerly waiting for, and it'll probably be a movie that I go to by myself because I don't know of anybody that will want to go. Well, I know of one person that will go with me. But I just don't know if that person's gonna be around. But next month, Oppenheimer comes out. And I have been discussing this movie. I have been talking about this movie with family, with friends, probably since it was announced, like, a year ago. Like, the other day I was having a conversation with my dad about movies, and I was mentioning that Oppenheimer was coming out next month. And my dad was like, "Oh yeah, is that the movie you've been talking about for the last year?" Like, that's how much I've been talking about this movie because Christopher Nolan is. Let's think about this, and we might do a list here real quick. Christopher Nolan might be my favorite director of all time. He is certainly the director of 3 of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. And when you've got that, when you have when you own 30% of the list, that's probably going to put you in a tier of my favorite director. I love Quentin Tarantino. That would be another one. But I think it's Nolan. Nolan made Memento, Inception, and Interstellar. He's a GOAT. 2 of those 3 are on my list. 2 of those 3 are on my top 10 list of favorite movies of all time. Inception is just absolutely fantastic. Just a fantastic movie. He's got one of my favorite, if not my favorite actor in it, in Leonardo DiCaprio. The concept is awesome. The cinematography is amazing. Well, what a fantastic movie. Interstellar, I'm a space nerd through and through. Like, in 3 days, there's a video game called Starfield. I don't know if anyone here is a huge video game player. Bethesda, makers of Fallout and Skyrim, are making a space sci-fi RPG called Starfield. Like, I'm a space guy through and through. So Interstellar was massive to me, and I'm sorry, and I know it's unpopular, and I'm okay with this. I don't need to defend the movie because if it's not on your list, I get it. Tenet is a all-time great movie. Tenet is awesome. Tenet is amazing. I have watched Tenet 5 or 6 times now. I watched it twice in theaters, and then every time I'm on a plane, it's on like it's on one of the services. Like normally when I fly Delta, it's on there, and I'll watch it every time. I will watch it start to finish every time. It is easily my favorite movie by Christopher Nolan. I would put Tenet 1, Interstellar 2, Inception 3 if I was ranking. The Prestige and Dunkirk. I haven't seen Dunkirk, and I have not seen The Prestige. But I've heard great things. I have not seen Dunkirk. But I'm definitely Oppenheimer. I will be there. I will be there opening night, July. I think it's like July 21st. I will be there. Thought for Tenet, he got a little too hung up in his own tropes. I thought it was good, but not in my tops. I mean, the idea of time inversion and all that stuff was just a cool. I'm one of these people, and I understand. I have not seen Memento, hell do you know? And I understand why people didn't like the movie, right? Because it's one of those movies that you got done with it and you immediately needed to rewatch it to now understand what just occurred. And I know people don't like that about movies, and I get that. I enjoyed that fact. I enjoyed that I finished the movie, and now I needed to go back with the knowledge that I just got from watching it the first time and to see it again. Like that was really cool to me. So yeah. So how do we get on this topic? Oh, Transformers. We mentioned Transformers. Next Nolan movie you see has to be Memento. You'll like it. All right, I'll add it to the list. I'll add it to the list of movies that I'm interested in seeing. But yeah, I am very very I'm very excited for Oppenheimer. And I'm trying to think, is there any other movies that I'm really super excited about? You're going to see Barbie, Heldy? Is that what you said the other day? Don't go see Barbie. Let's do. Well, we'll do some pop culture here to end the show. Let's do some upcoming movie releases. This is what people come for TDN Daily, right? This is what everybody comes. This is what everybody comes to the show for. Good is not a word that I would use to describe the Barbie movie. All right, what's coming out here? We got Transformers, which comes out tonight/tomorrow. What else is coming out here? Oh yeah. I'm gonna go at the end of the month. Asteroid City looks really fun to me. It's a Wes Anderson movie, right? I know there are people who swear by Wes Anderson. I have never seen a Wes Anderson movie, but Asteroid City, I'm very excited about. Yes, Heldy. Yes. Killers of the Flower Moon with Leonardo DiCaprio looks awesome. That's another one that I'm really, really excited about. So those two, I would throw in there. I would throw Asteroid City, Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm very excited about. Jeff Adams. Anyway, I missed some of this. We going with McBride for the Vikings? I mean, it's Ty Chandler right now is going to be the backup with Alexander Madison, but I think they probably think Dwayne McBride can, or they probably think he can slide into a role for them. More than likely, not fullback. I want to see the depth chart for the. Thank you. This is what I'm looking for. Yeah, I mean they've got Madison, Chandler, and McBride are going to be the three, but they probably find a role for McBride. He was a 7th round pick, so there's no guarantee. But I'm scrolling through movies for the remainder of the year. If anybody else has any football conversation that they'd like to have while we're doing this movie tangent, I am not interested in many movies this summer year. How about House of the Dragons? Is that a Game of Thrones thing? Because I've never seen a single second of Game of Thrones. So if that is, then I'm out. Well, I'm not out. I just won't watch it until I do Game of Thrones. Did you see Killers of the Flower Moon is going to be 3 hours and 30 minutes? I will be seated the whole time. Can I share a hot take? Or maybe this isn't a hot take. I've never once gotten up during the middle of a movie to go to the bathroom. Like, just prepare yourself. Like, if you're gonna get a big soda for the movie, which listen, I'm a big soda and big popcorn guy. Give me the large popcorn, give me a soda, give me some candy, and I'm good. But just go to the bathroom for the movie. Like, get to the movie. Listen, I know there are people, and I've done this. You just kind of storm into the movie late. You storm into the movie like 5 minutes before, or like right at the time that the show is gonna start, right? All that stuff, right? Just get there 20, 25 minutes early. Get there, buy your tickets if you haven't already done so online, get your snacks, go to the bathroom, set yourself up. Like, set yourself up for success. You don't need to leave. So no, I don't get up during the movie. Killers of the Flower Moon's in October, so we got a long wait on that one. But yeah, those are the ones. I know people are excited about like Dune Part 2, but I didn't see Dune Part 1, so Hell, do you just like going to movies? You like spending all that money on movies that are bad? It feels like a choice. We'll see if there's anything else that I see a trailer for. Maybe we'll make this a... Sam Teach, you're fashionably late. We're discussing movies. We're not even discussing football anymore. We're discussing movies. That's what the post show has been today. Heldy, you're the one that said it. Heldy, quote, I'm going to see Transformers today. I've been waiting for years to see another mediocre roller coaster movie about robots. And now you're asking, I'm going to see Transformers, aren't I? You're the guy that got us started on this entire conversation in the post show. What do you mean, aren't I? You brought it up. Bad movies are awesome if you can watch them in the comfort of your own home. I'm not going to go spend money on a bad movie because then they'll just keep making bad movies. I'll just watch it at home. It was in response to you asking if I like seeing bad movies. Oh, I understand the context now. I understand the context of what you said. That's fair. The Transformers movies are not very good. I won't see anything produced by Disney, though. Does that mean you won't see any Marvel movies? Spider-Verse doesn't count. See, you immediately... I have to see the new... I have to see a lot of new Marvel movies. What are they in? What is this? Phase 4? Phase 3? I think this is Marvel Phase 4. Phase 4 has been rough. Phase 4 has not been very good. I have not. So let's see. I'm just looking at the films that have been made so far in Phase 4 for Marvel. Shang-Chi was fine. I thought Eternals was better than people thought. It's not great, but Eternals was better than people thought. Spider-Man: No Way Home is a top 5 Marvel movie. I do not want to hear any other opinions. If you don't have Spider-Man: No Way Home as a top 5 Spider-Man movie or a top 5 Marvel movie, get out. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is the worst Marvel movie I've ever seen. Just downright awful. Thor: Love and Thunder was probably the best Thor that they've ever made, but it was not very good. No, Heldy, I'm sorry, Heldy, no. I listen, Heldy, I let you have the Sean Clifford stuff. I let you do the Philadelphia Eagles bit on the show. You're my Eagles guy. Like, I let you do these things. You have a lot of... Listen, I love when the listeners of this show can carve out a nice niche for themselves and carve out a nice space where they can be a part of the show and that their bits can be bits on the show. But no. Heldy, you can't. You're going to have to leave. You have to leave. I can't let you stay. I can't let you stay if you think No Way Home. If you think No Way Home is one of the worst movies you've ever seen, get out. And Black Panda: Wakanda Forever is the last Marvel movie that I've seen in theaters. And I thought it was okay. I enjoyed it. Well, I give you a 2 out of 10, Heldy. How about that? I give you a 2 out of 10. How does that make you feel? Imagine saying that No Way Home was a 2 out of 10. Does anybody have any football stuff here? Right, but you're out on Holland as Spider-Man. I mean, listen, I'm a Tobey Maguire guy through and through. He's my favorite Spider-Man, but holy smokes. I hate that for you. So let's think here. I need to see Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, and I need to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Those are the 2 movies I'm behind on. And then we've got the Marvels coming out later this year. Those are the 3 this year that we've got. And I'm behind on 2 of them. Yeah, I mean, listen. Phase 3 of Marvel is where they peaked. But see, Al, it's tough for me because like I'm committed now. I'm in on this, so I've got to watch it. I'll probably just spend a Friday night or a Saturday night watching it and just getting it over with and just doing it. But I'm not gonna not see it. But yeah. I've also got to catch up on some Star Wars stuff. Okay, we're going to be here all day doing this if that's what we're doing. But I appreciate everybody being here. A fun little pop culture post show here for you on the Thursday edition of the show. Sam Teets asks, Chris, want to know what prospects I scouted recently? I would love to know what prospects you scouted recently. You are going to have the last word on the show here today. You're going to tell me what prospects you scouted recently. And it's tough because sometimes you ask that question and it's because it's somebody that you know I'm going to like. And so that's why you bring it up. Or sometimes you just want to share who you watched, and it's just more informative. And I don't know what bucket this falls into. The original Iron Man is legit. The original Iron Man is legit. I think. I mean, there's some good ones. I think Infinity War and Endgame are awesome. Captain America: Civil War is legit. I think Winter Soldier is fine. I have a list somewhere. Hold on. I have a list somewhere. Hayden Hatton, wide receiver from Idaho. Xavier Guillory, wide receiver, Idaho State, transferred to Arizona State. I've heard of him because he's going to play for Arizona State. Josiah Ezrium, offensive tackle, Eastern Kentucky, and Jalen Travis, OT Princeton. Because I didn't know. Are any of them good? Are any of them good? I have a Marvel movie list somewhere. I'm going to see if I can pull it up to close the show with it. It's just going to be deep in the MCU movies ranked. Look at this. I found it. So I am forks up. Love that. I have 29 movies ranked. I have all the movies up through Thor, Love and Thunder ranked. So I just have to put one more. I just have one more movie to put on the list. I just have to put Black Panther Wakanda Forever on the list. That's it. That's all I have to do. That's all I have to do. Okay, folks, we got defensive line tomorrow. I am already dreading this list. I'm already dreading the debates that we're going to have over this list. Not because I don't enjoy it. Not because I don't enjoy you guys having the back and forth with me. But just because, like, it's just, there's a lot of work that goes into putting this list together. Specifically at this position and trying to figure it out. So we'll see. We'll see what the list looks like. And there's going to be a lot of debate. And I'm looking forward to that part of it. But the process of putting the list together has been a bit challenging so far here. But it'll be fun. I think it'll end up being fun by the time everything is said and done. But right now, it's not a fun list to go through. And it's not, the top teams are pretty easy to sort out. It's the middle tier, as always, that is just very, very difficult to sort out. So that's what we've got to look forward to tomorrow to close out the week. Appreciate all you being here. Appreciate everybody making this show a part of their day. Hope everybody has a great rest of their Thursday, and I will speak with you all tomorrow.